My sister looked at my son and said, "Your child has no place on a family vacation." Then she giggled. My 8-year-old son went silent. I said, "No vacation. I'll cancel everything." She froze. Mom whispered, "Are you serious?" I smiled and didn't say anything. It was just the beginning. We'd been planning the winter vacation for nearly a year. A ski resort in Vermont right after Christmas. 2 cabins right next to each other, enough room for all the kids, a fireplace, hot cocoa, snowmen, tubing, everything. I'd put in the work. Found the resort, made sure it had options for families with different needs, called ahead to confirm availability for Caleb's adaptive ski program. Rachel said she wanted to help, but as usual she flaked the second it involved actual effort. Still, I included her. I always did. I even paid the deposit myself to lock in the dates. It wasn't cheap, but it meant something to me. I wanted Caleb to experience that kind of trip. I wanted him to be part of it, not just dragged along behind everyone else like he didn't belong. Then Rachel opened her mouth and blew it all up over dinner. It was a typical Sunday at my parents' house. My mom made baked ziti, the house smelled like garlic bread and oversprayed perfume, and my dad had the game turned up too loud in the other room. Rachel was already sipping wine before we sat down, her nails freshly done, acting like the world existed for her entertainment. Caleb sat beside me, sketching quietly in his notebook, completely tuned out from the noise. He always brings it when we come over. It helps him cope with the overstimulation. Rachel leaned in to peek at his drawing, then laughed. Not a kind laugh. Not even an awkward one. She looked around and said it loud and clear. "Your child has no place on a family vacation." The room didn't go quiet. Just Caleb did. He stopped drawing. Didn't look up. Just slowly closed the sketchbook and stared down at the table. No one said anything. Not my mom, who suddenly got busy fixing her napkin. Not my dad, who turned the volume up another notch like he couldn't hear what was happening right behind him. Rachel just smirked and kept chewing. I said, "No vacation. I'll cancel everything." Rachel blinked. Thought I was bluffing. She asked if I was serious and then laughed like I was the one being dramatic. I didn't answer. I got up and started clearing the table. My mom leaned in quietly and asked if I really meant it. I smiled. Didn't say a word. That night after I got home, I logged into my account and canceled the entire trip. Lost the deposit. It hurt, but I didn't care. I couldn't imagine dragging Caleb into a snowy cabin just to spend a week being subtly or not subtly excluded by his own aunt. The next morning Rachel sent me a text. "So now we're canceling vacations over jokes? You need to grow up." Then a follow-up. "Not my fault your kid can't handle a little teasing." I blocked her. She's always been like this. When she crashed her car because she forgot to put it in park, my parents helped her get a new one. When she forgot her daughter's parent-teacher meeting for the 3rd time in a row, my mom made the excuse for her. They've always let her coast through life. The rules never seemed to apply. But this time they would. Because Rachel didn't know that the vacation wasn't the only thing I'd been planning all year. I'd also been quietly building a business. A real one. A startup I had been pouring my time and savings into for nearly 12 months. Late nights after Caleb went to bed, early mornings before work, I researched, wrote the plan, spoke to potential investors, and even secured a tiny office space. Rachel caught wind of it a few months ago and immediately wanted in. She had no experience, no real skills to offer, but she wanted her name on it. She said it should be ours because we were sisters. I never committed. She assumed that meant yes. What she didn't know was that the LLC paperwork came back last week. It was official. And she wasn't part of it. Not anymore. She just didn't know it yet. 3 days after I canceled the ski trip, she showed up at my front door. No warning. No text. Just pulled into my driveway like we were on normal terms. Like she hadn't just humiliated my son in front of the whole family. Caleb was on the couch, headphones on, completely zoned into his drawing. I was in the kitchen folding towels when I spotted her through the window, leaning against her car like she owned the place, sunglasses still on despite the cloudy sky, phone in one hand, iced coffee in the other. I opened the door, stepped outside, and shut it behind me. She smiled like nothing happened. Said we needed to talk. Said everyone was so confused about the drama and wanted things to go back to normal. That mom and dad thought I was being a bit much, and maybe I should think about how I'm affecting the family. I asked her directly what she meant when she said Caleb had no place on a family vacation. She rolled her eyes and gave me this half shrug like it wasn't even worth answering. Then she said it was obviously a joke, and I was being too sensitive again. That I needed to stop treating Caleb like he was made of glass. That he needed to learn how to take a joke like everyone else's kids. I told her to leave. She laughed, called me dramatic, and said I was trying to ruin her winter plans just because I was bitter about something. I didn't even respond. I just walked back inside and closed the door. She stood out there for another few minutes. I didn't watch. I just locked the door, sat down with Caleb, and we watched a documentary on wolves. He never even asked who was at the door. He already knew. That night my mom texted me. Can we talk soon? I didn't answer. Then my dad. Maybe you two should clear the air before this gets out of hand. I let it go to voicemail. They didn't get it. Or maybe they didn't want to. Rachel has always been their messy little darling. When she got caught shoplifting in college, they drove 2 hours to pick her up and somehow blamed the store's policies. When she forgot her daughter's coat in the middle of January, my mom said she was just having a hard week. They never made her grow up, so she never did. I knew she wouldn't let it go. But I didn't expect her to stoop lower than she already had. The next day she showed up again, this time at Caleb's school. I was parked in the pickup line when I saw her standing by the entrance, arms folded, coat open despite the freezing wind, like she was trying to make a point. I thought for a second maybe she was there to pick up her daughter early or something. But no, she was waiting for me. I pulled in slowly, hoping she'd just stay out of it. She didn't. She stepped right into the lane as I parked, standing in front of my car like this was some kind of dramatic movie scene. I rolled my window down 2 inches. She said, "We need to talk. You're being unfair, Michelle. You can't just cut me out like this." I told her to move. She stood there. "You think I'm the villain now? For telling a joke? You're being ridiculous." That's when Caleb came out, walking hand in hand with his teacher. He saw her, and the way his face changed, he recognized her instantly. He looked at me, then at her, then down at the sidewalk. I parked, got out, and walked to meet him. I didn't say anything to her. She started following us to the car, ranting again about how I was tearing apart the family over one comment. I turned and said, "You're not being erased, Rachel. You're just not included anymore." She stopped walking. I buckled Caleb into the back seat, got in, and drove off. She just stood there, arms limp at her sides, in the middle of the parking lot. That night, for the first time in forever, no one from the family called. No passive-aggressive texts. No guilt-tripping voicemails. It was quiet. I think they realized I wasn't backing down. And Rachel? She had no idea what was coming next. Because while she was running around trying to force her way back into our vacation plans, the business she thought we were building together was already halfway to launch, without her name on a single document. She had begged to be part of it. Told me she finally wanted to do something serious. Said she was ready to grow up and be responsible. Said she wanted to build something that would last. But she hadn't lifted a finger. She had no idea how far I'd already taken it without her. No, she wasn't just out. She was never getting in. About a week after the scene at Caleb's school, Rachel started unraveling. It began with random texts at weird hours. First they were passive-aggressive. Stuff like, "Hope you're proud of yourself," or, "Congrats on being the reason no one's speaking to each other." Then they turned emotional. "I miss you. I don't know why you're being like this." And finally, "You know this is all just a huge misunderstanding, right?" I didn't answer a single one. Not because I was trying to punish her. I just didn't trust a single word coming out of her mouth. Not anymore. Then came the voicemails. Long ones. Some sounded like she'd been crying. Others were full of anger, rattling off reasons I was being unfair, selfish, impossible to talk to. A few times she brought up the business, like that would get me to respond. She said she deserved to be included. That I was going to regret cutting her out. That I'd be lost without her. I saved every one of those voicemails. By day 10 she started showing up again. She'd pull into my driveway without warning, sit in her car for a while, then knock on the door like nothing had happened. Sometimes she'd pretend she was just in the neighborhood. Once she brought coffee and acted like she was just dropping off a peace offering. Another time she brought her 2 kids and stood on my porch talking loudly so the neighbors could hear about how she just wanted to see her sister again. I didn't answer. Ever. But Caleb heard it. He'd peek through the curtains and ask if we were going somewhere else for dinner. He stopped bringing his sketchbook into the living room. Started hanging closer to me like he could feel something was off even when no one said a word. That was what finally made me angry. I wasn't trying to cut Rachel out of her family. He did that to herself. But the fact that she kept dragging my son into it, showing up when she knew he'd be home, making scenes he could hear through the windows, it told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even confused. She was just desperate to get her control back. The illusion of being needed. The illusion of being forgiven. That was what she couldn't let go of. Then came the night she completely lost it. It was a Thursday around 6. I had just served dinner. Caleb was at the table quietly eating mashed potatoes. I was in the kitchen rinsing dishes when I saw headlights sweep across the living room wall. I walked to the door, saw her car, and felt my stomach tighten. I didn't even need to open it. I just waited. She didn't knock this time, she banged. Hard. Over and over. Then she yelled my name. Caleb flinched and dropped his fork. I opened the door halfway and stepped outside. She looked terrible. Her hair was messy, eyes red, coat open in the freezing cold. She walked straight up to me like she was ready to fight. "You seriously need to get over yourself," she said. "You're tearing the family apart." "Over what, exactly?" "A joke." I asked her if she remembered what she said. Word for word. "About Caleb not belonging." He shrugged. "Oh, come on, Michelle. He's a sweet kid, but he's different, and I was being honest. You can't bubble wrap him forever." That was the last straw. I told her to leave. She said she wasn't going anywhere until I talked to her like an adult. I said, "This is me talking to you like an adult. Leave." Then she said something that made my blood run cold. "Fine. Keep playing perfect. But don't expect me to stay quiet when you go public with that little business of yours." I didn't even blink. I said, "Go ahead. Talk all you want. You're not in it. You were never in it." She looked stunned. Like she hadn't let herself believe I was serious until that exact moment. I walked back inside and closed the door. She stood outside for almost 10 minutes after that. I didn't look. I sat at the table with Caleb, helped him finish his dinner, and then we watched a nature documentary until bedtime. That night I called my parents. For the first time since everything started. My mom answered quiet. My dad was on speaker. I told them what happened. Told them Rachel came to the house again, screamed in front of Caleb, threatened me. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't ask them to do anything. I just laid it out. And for the first time in my life they didn't defend her. They were quiet. Really quiet. Then my dad said something I never expected to hear from him. "This has gone too far." Then my mom said, "We'll talk to her." Not she didn't mean it. Not she's going through a lot. Just that. It was the first crack in the wall that had always protected Rachel. She wasn't used to people turning around and walking away. But that was exactly what was starting to happen. And she knew it. I didn't actually believe my parents when they said they'd talk to her. They had said that before. Over the years, over different incidents, different messes Rachel left behind. Every time it ended the same way. She cried. They softened. Nothing changed. So when my mom called and asked me to come over alone for dinner, I assumed it would be another round of careful neutrality. I almost didn't go. But something in her voice felt off. Not defensive. Not rushed. Just tired. When I got there, the house felt strange. No TV noise. No background chatter. My dad was already sitting at the table, hands folded, staring at nothing. Dinner was on the stove, untouched. My mom sat down across from me and said, "We went to see her." I waited. "She blew up," my dad said. Immediately. They told me everything. How Rachel started yelling before they even sat down. How she accused them of siding with me, of letting me manipulate them. How she laughed when they brought up Caleb. Actually laughed. Said I was using him as a shield to control everyone. That was when my mom finally snapped. She told Rachel she was done excusing her behavior. Done pretending cruelty was honesty. Done stepping in every time she refused to handle her own life. She told her that what she said to Caleb was unacceptable, and that if she couldn't see why, that was a problem. Rachel screamed. Threw something. Stormed into her bedroom and slammed the door like a teenager. My parents left. They sat there at the table with me, quietly admitting something I never thought I'd hear. "We've been exhausted for years," my mom said. "We just didn't want to admit it." I didn't feel relieved. I felt numb. Then came the part none of us expected. The very next afternoon, my dad stopped by their house to drop off mail that had accidentally been delivered to them. When he pulled into the driveway, Rachel's oldest daughter was sitting on the front steps. Alone. Backpack beside her. It was freezing out. She told him her mom had dropped her off early that morning and said Grandma and Grandpa would take care of it. No call. No warning. Nothing. That was it. My dad brought her inside, warmed her up, fed her lunch, then called Rachel and told her this could never happen again. Not once. Not ever. He said they would no longer babysit on demand. No longer cover for her. No longer fix things she broke. Rachel lost it. Accused them of abandoning her. Said they were punishing her to prove a point. My mom told her calmly that this wasn't punishment. This was adulthood. That night, my parents sat me down and told me they were stepping back from her entirely for a while. No money. No childcare. No damage control. They said they needed boundaries too. I watched them say it out loud like they were convincing themselves as much as me. Then the unexpected part happened. Rachel showed up at their house 2 days later and caused a scene so loud that a neighbor called to complain. Her kids were in the car. Watching. My mom didn't open the door. My dad told her through the door that she needed to leave and calm down. She screamed that everyone was against her. That I had turned the family on her. That she'd never forgive them. They didn't chase her. They didn't apologize. They let her leave. For the first time ever, no one ran after her. 3 days passed. No texts. No voicemails. No drive-bys. Then late one night I got a message from her. Just 3 words. I messed up. No excuses. No blame. No follow-up. I stared at it for a long time. Then I put my phone down and went to check on Caleb. He was asleep, sketchbook open beside him, one hand resting on the page like he'd drifted off mid-thought. For once, the chaos wasn't my responsibility to manage. And for the first time in my life, Rachel was being forced to sit alone with the consequences of her own behavior. That was the real beginning of the end. After that text I messed up, I didn't answer. I stared at it longer than I want to admit, waiting for another message. Something to follow it up. An explanation. A backpedal. But nothing came. Just those 3 words. I didn't delete it. But I didn't reply either. I think a part of me wanted her to sit with the silence for once. To feel the weight of not being comforted, not being excused. I wasn't angry anymore. Just tired. For the first time I felt like I had stepped out of the storm and could finally hear myself think. That week passed quietly. Too quietly. Caleb started sleeping through the night again. He drew 3 full pages in his sketchbook without ripping a single one out. On Thursday he asked if we could go sledding after school. We stayed out until it was nearly dark. He made snow angels and talked about starting a comic book about animals who talk only in pictures. I listened like I hadn't in weeks. Because for once, my mind wasn't in 10 different places trying to brace for Rachel's next outburst. Then Saturday came. It was early. I was still in pajamas making pancakes. The coffee hadn't even finished brewing when I heard a car engine outside. I looked through the blinds. It was her. Wait. She sat in the car for a while. Engine off. Just sitting. Then she stepped out, no kids with her, no sunglasses, no phone in her hand. She walked up to the porch and knocked once. I didn't move. She knocked again, softer this time. Then nothing. She sat down on the top step. For the next 40 minutes she just sat there. No calls. No yelling. She didn't even text. She left quietly. Later that evening I got a message. I waited because I didn't want to barge in again. I'm trying, Michelle. I'm not good at it. But I'm trying. So I didn't reply. I read it then put the phone down. I wasn't trying to punish her. I just didn't know what she expected. For me to say, that's okay, and open the door like none of it ever happened? That wasn't going to happen. Monday came. Then Tuesday. Then something strange happened. I got a call from the coordinator at the adaptive ski program Caleb was supposed to attend during our now cancelled vacation. He sounded confused. Someone made a donation, she said. A large one. In Caleb's name. No return address. Just a note that said, for the kids who belong everywhere. My heart stopped. She didn't have to sign it. I knew exactly who it was from. I sat with that for a while. I didn't bring it up to anyone. Not even my parents. I didn't tell Caleb because even though the gesture was kind, it wasn't something I wanted him to carry. Redemption isn't something you deliver in a neatly wrapped act. Something you live out quietly over time. Then Wednesday came. She knocked again. This time I opened the door. Rachel stood there holding something small in her hands. A brand new sketchbook. Caleb's name written on the cover in neat, careful lettering. No decorations. No dramatics. Just his name. She didn't try to come in. She said she bought it for him. That she knew it didn't fix anything. That she wasn't asking to be forgiven today, or maybe ever. She said she didn't come to get back into my life. She came because she realized she had spent most of hers performing for people who kept lowering the bar for her, and resenting me because I kept raising it for myself. She admitted that laughing at Caleb wasn't about him being different. It was about how small she felt around him. Around me. That she hated how easily he found joy in things she didn't understand. And how quickly I'd chosen him over her. How she never realized until now that she had given me no choice. I didn't cry. I didn't hug her. I just listened. Then I took the sketchbook from her hands, nodded, and closed the door. I put it on Caleb's shelf. Right next to the one he'd filled during the week she was silent. He didn't ask where it came from. And I didn't tell him. Because this wasn't his burden. This wasn't his story to finish. Rachel was at the beginning of something that had nothing to do with Caleb anymore. This wasn't about family. Or loyalty. Or forgiveness. This was about her learning how to be a person without expecting applause. She had spent her whole life demanding grace without ever offering it. Now she was learning what it looked like to earn it. Weeks passed. No more texts. No more surprise visits. No more scenes on the porch. It was strange how fast everything quieted down. After months of chaos, silence started to feel like something I had to get used to again. And I did. Slowly. Quietly. Caleb did too. The night terrors stopped. He started drawing more animals. Lately it's been wolves in space helmets. His new favorite thing is saying he's the space zookeeper of the galaxy. Rachel stayed gone. Then one Sunday out of nowhere my mom invited us over for dinner. I said yes. Not for Rachel. For Caleb. I knew he missed my parents even if he didn't say it. They had pulled back from Rachel, but they'd stayed distant with me too, like they weren't sure how to fix the years they spent pretending nothing was ever really her fault. We showed up late. I wanted to be sure she wasn't going to be there. She wasn't. Dinner was quiet, simple, peaceful. My mom didn't ask any hard questions. My dad helped Caleb build a paper airplane out of a napkin. For the first time in a long time, it felt like a family again. After we ate, while Caleb was playing in the living room, my mom asked if we could talk privately. We went out onto the porch. She told me Rachel had been different lately. Not dramatically, but different. She'd stopped showing up without warning. She'd started arranging actual childcare instead of just dropping her kids off without asking. She got a part-time job, first one she'd kept for more than a month in years. And most surprising of all, she stopped talking about me entirely. No blame. No drama. Just silence. Then my dad stepped outside and joined us. He said, "We didn't want to admit how much she wore everyone down. We kept saying she was overwhelmed, but the truth is, we were too." He looked at me and said, "We should have stood up for you years ago." I didn't know what to say to that. I didn't need an apology, not really. Just hearing them admit it was enough. Then my mom said something that really stuck with me. She was selfish with us too, Michelle. You weren't the only one. We just didn't know how to make her stop without making everything worse. She paused. But then you did. You made it stop. And maybe that's why she's finally changing. I didn't respond. I didn't want to believe that yet. Change isn't proven in apologies. It's proven in what you do when no one's clapping for you anymore. And Rachel had always lived for applause. But I also knew something had shifted. The next weekend she sent me a photo. Just a sketchbook. Her daughter had drawn a picture of a fox with a backpack, labeled Caleb's friend. That was it. No caption. No request to meet up. No hidden message. Just a quiet gesture. One I could choose to accept. Or not. I showed it to Caleb. He smiled and said, "She's getting better at drawing." That's all he said. Then he went back to his comic. I didn't text Rachel back. Not because I was angry. Because I didn't need to anymore. She was finally learning how to be in our lives without forcing herself to the center of it. Me. I was finally free to live mine without dragging her behind me.